now we're going to move into lab 4 for histories, which is collecting trend data out of the controllers. And so the VAVs actually have already been programmed with trend points. So we're actually going to do a little modification here in step 7. It says configure histories in AHU equips instead of VAVs. But let's just show you what's already in there. So if I go to any VAV point that's purple, because purple is a numeric point, green is a Boolean point, meaning on-off, and orange is what we call a enumerated value, which means there's some number that's associated with some text description. But any purple point for a VAV, you'll see that there's already histories being collected. So if you're on the basic tab, it kind of just shows you that it's being historied, and it kind of gives you a graph of some recent numbers. If you go to the advanced view, and this is just any VAV zone temp should have similar settings. So the history option has been enabled, and it's collecting histories every 5 minutes. And so it started collecting histories at 9:55 today. It most recently collected them at 12:35 Pacific time, which is 2 minutes ago, and it's collected 32 histories. So those are already done. And so everything that we're doing in terms of building graphics, adding points, adding tags, it's just adding new records into the database or applying tags to records that are in the database. So in this case, for zone temperature, what we see in this view is it's kind of just giving us a slightly easier way to digest the various tags, and they're grouped according to kind of similar functions and whatnot. But if you click this I button next to advanced, it kind of just gives you a very simple look at all of the different tags that apply to that point. And so the reason I'm showing you this is the tags that are important to start collecting histories is this hist tag, which is a marker tag. Either it's collecting histories or it's not. And there's also this hist collect interval, which says I'm going to collect interval trend information every 5 minutes for this point. And so what we can do is create the history for one point, and then there's a function called cloning tags, which means basically copying tags that you set up in one point to other records, other similar records in the database. So we're going to set up a trend in one of our error handler points and then clone it to similar points that with the same hist and hist collect interval settings. I mentioned that the default license lets you collect trends on up to 20% of your total points. So in our exercise, we're just going to do it to all numeric points, but you got to be a little careful in an actual project so that you don't exceed your history limitation. And the way that you differentiate between points that are historied, that count against the history limit, and ones that don't, is there will be a marker tag called aux, AUX, like auxiliary. And if the aux tag is applied to a point, then it cannot be trended with the history configuration, and it won't count against your history limits. It just counts against the total caps. So I just want to show you that, to show you those two tags. And so now I'm going to go to one of my error handler controllers, like error handler 2, and then I'm going to pick one of the purple points, like duck static. And so notice that it does not have the history configuration in there yet. So following the lab, we're going to go to an AHU equip instead, because the VAVs have already been done, and we're going to the duck static object. And so we're going to go to the advanced view and enable the history option. So here's the advanced view, here's the history option. And then the hist type is collected. And the hist collect interval, it says to do it every 1 minute. So you can either type in a new number or just use the arrows down so you see 1 minute. and then it says click on the save button to save your changes. And so now this point will collect data in the next minute. So the lab says wait 1 minute to allow for a value to be collected. In the advanced view, HisN shows a timestamp when the last value was collected, and HisSize shows how many samples have been logged. So at 12, my computer has 1241. So at 1242, and I might need to click away and come back, it should show that it collected a history sample, and it should have some date stamps in there. So I'm just waiting for that 1 minute period to end. Okay, so now I'm just going to click on a different point and come back to duck static. So I can go to the advanced view, and I can see there that it started collecting histories at 1242 on my computer. I'm in Pacific time, and it collected 1. So that's good. That means it was able to read a value and store it in the history log. And so now step 7, it says click tools, batch edit, and clone tags. And we're going to want to clone the his tag as well as the his collect interval tag to all numeric points. And we're going to do AHUs instead of VAVs since the VAVs have already been done. So in our filter, we're going to say every point that is numeric, and we're going to change the equip ref to say AHU all lowercase instead of VAV. It goes on to say you can use the filter button and click the custom button to find, and in this case, we're going to find the duck static point. I usually like to pick the point that I set up as the starting point, and then I'm going to delete some extra tags that's going to narrow the focus down too much. And so I'll walk you through that. So here's the duck static point. If you just wanted to see that the his tag is there and that his collect interval is there, I can click the I button, and I see that this does the duck static point now does have the his marker tag, and it does have a his collect interval of 1 minute. Those are the 2 tags that I want to clone. And so what it says is that once you pick the point that has the correct trend setup in it, go to gears. In the tools menu, click batch edit and clone tags. And then you want to pick his and his collect interval. You can use shift or control to do multi-select. And then here it says the tag selected above will be applied to this filter. So I can click this filter button to help the software will then help me build the filter with the right format, syntax, whatnot.
Hey, to backtrack for a second, once we saw that the hist and the hit it changed from 1 minute on that information tab.
Yep.
You go to the gears top right.
Yep.
So
batch edit and clone tags.
Yeah, so mine's not allowing me to click the gear. Do I have to be back?
Let's see. Let me make you the presenter. Show me what your screen's looking like. Okay, go ahead and share your screen.
So okay, so I saw that in advance, like we had it.
Yeah, when I say gears, it's the bottom of the left sidebar.
All right, I got you.
Oh, okay. So,
yeah.
Oh,
you said
batch edit and clone tags.
All right, okay.
Okay.
And then his and his collect interval are the 2 tags that you want to select. No, they're there. They're right there. You don't have to scroll or anything. Yep. And then his collect interval should also be selected. Oh, I'm controlling, that's why. Sorry. Okay, so now yours looks like mine will here in a minute. So let me share my screen. Okay, so this one's set up with histories, tools, batch edit and clone tags, his collect interval. Then click this filter button, and then click the custom button. And then go drill down to your duck static point in your air handler. So I'll go to training, floor 1, AHU2, duck static.
Mine says no data.
That's kind of my starting point.
Mine says no data.
Custom.
Oh, custom.
We go to custom, and then we go to
Training.
training site.
Yep.
Floor 1 that we're doing.
Yep.
Okay.
Then pick your air handler, pick your duck static point underneath the air handler.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then click the blue OK button bottom right. And it's got more tags than we need here. So we do want it to be just numeric points, so kind equals number is good. We do want it to be just any point, so we can get rid of air, because this is related to, we don't want it to just be air points. We want to include temperatures and everything else. So if you click the gears next to a marker tag, you can choose delete. We don't want discharge because we want it to be mixed and return as well. We don't want pressure because, again, it could be temps or humidities or anything else we had. And we don't want sensors because we also want to log our set points, not just the input. So once we narrow it down to just say kind equals number and point, then you can click this test button and it'll test your database and say, well, that's 163 points in your database. And I haven't narrowed it down enough yet because I also want to add the equip ref to only be air handlers. So I can just manually add this equip ref dash greater than VAV. And so I can just click OK once I've narrowed it down to just numbers and points. And then in the filter editor box, you can just manually type and equip ref dash greater than AHU all lowercase, since that's one of the marker tags that we applied to the air handler. And so then once you add the and equip ref dash greater than AHU and you hit the blue update button, it'll kind of rebuild the query and might move things inside parentheses. That's okay. But now if you click the test button, now it narrows it down. Yours probably says 20 because you have 2 air handlers. I added that 3rd air handler. So it's 10 points per air handler times however many air handlers you have. And so then once you hit once you've tested it and you like your filter, click confirm. It puts that filter in this box, and then you can hit apply, and then it will go to each numeric point in each VAV and add the same history settings. So if I go to my other air handler on the 2nd floor and pick any purple point, like return air temp, on the advanced view, now it should be histories turned on and it's collecting every minute. Yep. So that saved me the effort of having to go to each point individually and say his type collected, his collect interval 1 minute. All right, so that's a way that you can quickly apply a similar history configuration to many points without having to go to them individually. And so once you started collecting data, then you can use the history app to show the data that you have collected. So we're actually going to display the trend data from our VAVs because that's been collecting longer. So here at the bottom of page 18, viewing collected histories in the Historian app, we're going to navigate to a VAV controller. So I'm going to go to my training site, floor 1, VAV 102. And then it says, select the Historian app. And then it says, select add new chart. So once I've navigated to a VAV equip, go to menu and Historian. Now there's already this trend that was built in from the template called VAV trends. So we're going to want to give ours a slightly different name. So we're going to do add new chart on the right. And then it says, which points do you want to add to the chart? And there's this relative checkbox. The relative checkbox, you want to put a check in there if you want to be able to save this chart and use it for multiple types of equip, not just VAV 102, but all VAVs. So the points that I'm choosing are cooling octemp SP, heating octemp SP, and zone temperature. You would probably normally put the airflow values in there too, but we're not really reading airflow, so that's why I've excluded that one. So you just flip the switch for any point that you want to add to the chart: cooling octemp SP, heating octemp SP, zone temperature. So 3 points, and then make sure you put that checkbox lower left for relative, and then click OK. Then on the right here, it will build a trend chart, and all these points are shown on the same chart since they have the same units, in this case of degrees Fahrenheit. And so you could view that on your phone, because it's in the right sidebar. But if you want to take advantage of all this display area on the left, you can click on the gears at the top of the right sidebar and then choose Launch View, and then it will kind of slide all that trend data into the larger workspace here on the left. There are some different slider bars. By default, it's showing the entire day, but you can slide from the left side so that you don't necessarily start at midnight, and you could slide from the right side so that you don't necessarily end at midnight at the end of the day. And that gives you a kind of a narrower window when we've actually been collecting trend data. And so up to this point, this is just a temporary chart. If we want to save this for use later with other equips, you can go to gears, and you can go to gears on either the left side or the right side if they're both visible. And then Save As lets you save the chart to bring back up at a later date. So if you click Save As, it asks you to give your trend a name and choose something different than, here it says VAV, temp, and SP to make it different. So I'm going to give the chart a name like VAV, temp, and SP. Don't worry about the folder path. That's fine where it is. So enter a name and click Create. And as long as you put a check in that relative box, now if I go to any floor and any VAV in my nav bar, if I then go to the menu and pick the Historian app, let's see, I think because I've already got it shown, let me just choose a different app temporarily, like Point Graphics. So let me just reload my tab. All right, so menu, Historian, now I see VAV, temp, and SP. And no matter which VAV I show, it's going to have that VAV, temp, and SP. So I can click on it to show the trend data from the VAV in my nav bar. And then if I want to take advantage of the workspace on the left, I can click on Gears and Launch View. You can hover over any point on the graph, and it'll show you the value as well as the timestamp. And so some other kind of options, once you have some trend data displayed, again, you can hover to see the value and the timestamp wherever you happen to be hovering. Once you've collected trend data for a longer period of time, you can click on this today and choose a different week, month, or year. If you go to Gears and pick Series Options, you can change the default colors if you're very specific about what color you want. Each point has its own color. You can click the little arrow on the left side and click on the color bar to pick a new color if you don't like the color it shows for you. Some other things you can do if you X out from the series settings here. You can show the trend data as more of a table than a graph. That's this little kind of menu icon top right of the trend graph. So that shows it sort of a table. The zone temperature is only logging every 5 minutes, so that only has entries every 5th slot. The temperatures are every 1 minute, so that's why those have a value in every slot. When you go back to the graph view by clicking on kind of like the bar graph, you can click on the down arrow to save the trend data as either a CSV, is like a comma separated variable file that you could import like into Excel to use Excel's graphing tools. If you choose PDF, then it'll save that graph as a PDF that you could send email to somebody or somehow capture and save for later viewing. So set up the points to be trended, then build charts to view the trend data once you have started logging data.